Alexandra Hunt, she's a progressive candidate running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 3rd District. Now, she's running on a leftist platform, but what many people may not have known about her is she's also a former stripper. And instead of letting that stigma and that whole thing happen and run into attack ads, she's embracing that past, but she's also talking about what she really is about. So here's a little bit more about Alexandra. Let's watch.
I think the reason people are so drawn to our platform and can relate to my story, even if they haven't participated in sex work or they're not a young woman, is because it's a story about what it's like to survive in America with no guardrails. You know, the police aren't coming to help us. Our government doesn't really have stable longevity programs that are going to help us, and we're really out here on our own. Since being forthcoming on this race that I used to work as a stripper, people have been saying, you know, why does that matter? And to me, I know that they are trying to be accepting of my past and saying that's irrelevant, you can still be a candidate. But it just shows how little they understand what it's like to live that life and how far sex workers, strippers, or people in any sort of stigmatized position, how marginalized they are and pushed into the shadows.
And I would also say what many people may not even realize, people that they may have known or met that do work in that industry. But there's all this judgment. Now, by the way, she did write an essay in Huffington Post about it and explains why she has decided to be open about her past work. So sex workers are one of the most marginalized groups who face stigma, abuse, and human rights violations. As I prepared to enter the political world as a candidate, I made promises that I would not leave anyone behind and that I would be honest about my experiences, including my time working as a stripper in college. And she also talks about how she stripped as a means of paying her bills all through college, as she just pointed out there in a bit, and now using those the stories of those struggles to advocate for decriminalization of sex work. So let's look at that piece. In reality, in today's economy, more and more individuals are turning to the sex work industry to ensure their ability to pay their bills. Younger people face an intersection of issues of not being able to afford houses, rising rent, student debt, high unemployment, and low-paying jobs, with the very few answers or support coming from our government. Also, the criminalization of sex work is based in misogyny. Society sets up women with less capital than men, less power than men, and objectifies our bodies. Sex work turns that power model on its head and allows women to own our sexuality, own our bodies, and use that to bring both money and power to the level playing field. Let's jump down to this one particular thing she had. There's a shirt that I believe she's selling also for the fundraising part, and it says, "I may have danced for money, but I'm no corporate whore." And there's just a bit of the example there, because we know how much we may rail on women that are in the sex work business, and oh my God, and all these names get called. But when people are selling out their constituents and also their positions on a daily basis when it comes to elected officials, the whore name just doesn't get attached to them. So I wonder how this is gonna work out for us. So really fast, the incumbent that she's going against, whose name is Dwight Evans, and his corruption that she's calling out publicly is for investing in defense contractors. So check this out. Representative Dwight Evans is the most robust trader among the House delegation in terms of sheer transactions, estimated to have traded some $572,000 through 57 transactions in less than 2 years. And Evans has often engaged in investments that seem at odds with his public stances. One more piece here. Even as he campaigns for re-election on progressive plaudits, like a 100% rating from environmental groups like Clean Water Action, his financial disclosures show he has sunk as much as $140,000 into shares of companies like ExxonMobil, the Canadian oil sands extractor Suncor, the energy logistics company ONEC, and the Williams companies, which processes natural gas. I'm not sure if the people that may be voting for him are considering that background.
You make such a great point about that, JR, because unfortunately in today's society, we like to stigmatize people who, like in her case, do something legal and provide pleasure, entertainment, whatever to people. She gets demonized for that under our puritanical society. But the very people who actually cause real pain and suffering by selling out to corporate donors, they don't get the amount of criticism and heat that they deserve. And so I love the fact that she's bold. I love that t-shirt. I think that that's a great campaign slogan. And I love that she has all the right progressive values. I mean, if you look at where she stands on all of the issues, she's in favor of Medicare for all. She's right on every policy issue that I've seen. But she has chosen to focus on something that's very personal to her, and I think is very important because people in sex work are not treated well. We still have this terrible treatment toward people who have consented and want to be part of this industry. We need to offer protections for them. Aside from doing away with the taboos associated with it, we want to legalize sex work and regulate it to keep people safe. I think that's a really important angle, and I'm glad that she's focusing on that.
So great points all around by both of you. First off, I like how we preface this entire thing with showing her opponent's corruption, because John Ossoff and a few others are trying to push a bill that bans members of Congress from trading stocks. Obviously, many people in Congress are against it, including Nancy Pelosi, who has a net worth of like over $100 million at this point, and her fridge like costs more than like my apartment that I pay for rent. So like that's a huge issue, but there was a really great episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver where he actually went over a lot of this when it comes to sex work that I highly recommend for everybody. Now, if I may, there's a New York Post headline, bear with me, where the headline is "Former stripper soft on crime is running." Now, first, there is a name. They're trying to demonize it, like Anna said. But this is also the party of Reagan, if I remember. And if you do remember, Nancy Reagan was known for a certain thing in Hollywood. I find it rather befuddling. I find it rather befuddling that the party of Reagan is gonna demonize someone who participates in totally legal work, yet they're totally silent on the former. It's interesting to me. It's the same, real quick, it's the same sort of attack that we saw with like, granted it's a different line of work, but like when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was coming up, it was like, well, she's just a bartender. When no, these people are very skilled. They have career experience more so than a lot of these long-standing politicians that are in DC. And what I'm starting to see, as Anna alluded to, is not necessarily a complete changing of the guard in the public when it comes to sex work, but we are starting to progress a little bit more, which is a positive thing.
Listen, I mean, fact of the matter is the Republican Party contains many fans of individuals employed in the sex work industry, namely our former president, who tried to cover up the fact that he cheated on his own wife with people in the sex work industry and paid hush money payments to ensure that any information about those rendezvous wouldn't come out. Unfortunately, we now know about those issues, but it's just amazing to me how the very people who are attacking this candidate are individuals who get caught up in their own sex scandals involving people in the sex work industry. We know what the truth is. It's just dirty politics. It's going after her for something that is legal, for something that is a profession, for something that she consented to and wanted to do. And look, she's smart. She knows politics. She knows that corporate corruption actually runs this country. And I really hope she wins. I want strong women who have these bold campaigns and remain undeterred despite all the attacks that they deal with as a result of these hypocritical, disgusting politicians.
Well, as you already know, it's a club. So the things that you've maybe dove into in your past, we got open racists that run for office and win now. They've always won, but now they're openly doing it again like they used to. We got abusers, we got people that are accused of doing things that are horrific, corrupt politicians, as we pointed out earlier. Those types of things, when they get called out, they're like, oh, that's just politics, right? Oh yeah, he was just accused of it. Oh yeah, sure, he's a racist, but that's just his base. These are all things that are okay, but they'll say former dancer soft on crime, and that's all they have to say, and that must be disqualifying. None of that other stuff is, by the way, though. But as you mentioned that, I'm glad you pointed this out, because not just Donald Trump, which part of the country consumes porn the most? It's the Bible Belt. It's the Bible Belt. They love it, but then they act like they don't. So it's good for viewing, but it's not good for making sure that there's humans behind it that might have something to say and might actually represent some constituents, because that's actually the last thing they ever want to see happen.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.